So Nintendo just released the community tournament guidelines. This is probably the worst PR decision, the worst company decision that I've ever seen from a video game company in my lifetime. This is really, really bad, and I want to just break it down for you guys, okay? So I have them up on screen. We're going to go through them and just show you guys how awful these actually are. So they, of course, put out their PR statement about how they want to, support individuals about celebrating our games and stuff, and then they proceed to limit all of that. So, yeah. The community tournament is small scale and not for commercial profit. So, like, let's say you can't generate any commercial revenue at all, except permitted by these guidelines. So, if you want to make any tournament, you have to follow these guidelines. So you can't have any more than 200 participants for any non-profit tournaments. So if you want to do a large scale, like what's the charity, the big charity? Oh yeah, so it's Games Done Quick. So Games Done Quick, they do speed runs. I don't think they'll be technically affected by this. But if they ever decided to run like an in-person tournament for profit, or not for non-profit, then it would not be allowed if they have any more than 200 participants in person, which is just ridiculous, okay? There is no legal reason why you do this. Any Smash tournament that wants to do like a non-profit sort of tournament, they're not allowed to do that. So entry fees. You cannot have an entry fee over 20 euros or 18 pounds, which probably translates to something like $15 or a little bit over. I don't know what the current exchange rate is, but anything over $20, basically not allowed. Incredible stuff from Nintendo. Again, no real reason why do they want to do this. Now, of course, they have some caveats, like you're allowed to cover the costs of the tournament, but you're not allowed to make any revenue, right? So you can only cover the costs. No prize may exceed a market value of 4,500 pounds or 5,000 euros, which is just insane. Like, you're just limiting your potential outreach with your tournaments. You're limiting basically all Smash tournaments. Even if they aren't run for profit, they can't give a good prize pool, even if they wanted to. Ridiculous stuff. The total value of a cash prizing from a single organizer in a 12-month period must be no more than the equivalent of 9,000 euros or 9,000 pounds or 10,000 euros. So right, I'm using this for the UK guidelines. I'm assuming they're gonna translate over to NA because they went from Japan to UK. I'm assuming NA is gonna release it very soon. Ridiculous. You can't even have multiple tournaments with big prize pools. That's not allowed. Insane stuff. If you have in-person tournaments, you can't collect admission fees from spectators for more than $15. So let's say esports got big and they got around the fact that you can't, let's say like League of Legends, right? League of Legends, Rocket League, Dota, those things have very, very good seating arrangements. They have very good like suites, things like that. If it ever got to be that big, which, Nintendo with these tournament guidelines would not be allowing that to happen in the first place, but let's just say somehow we found a way to get around that. Let's say a game is super, super big in the competitive scene. They somehow get around all these rules. You can't allow people in for more than 15 pounds. That's ridiculous. The tournament may use Nintendo game footage or images under the following conditions. You must be officially approved by Nintendo if you want to show footage of tournament gameplay. So, any tournaments that have any money involved with them, if you have an entry fee at all, if you have a spectator fee, right? You cannot show any tournament gameplay at all whatsoever unless they're officially launched by Nintendo. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Can't use screenshots either for any announcement materials either. So even if you don't want to stream the tournament, you just want to host a cool little tournament in your area, right? you're not allowed to have any announcement materials with gameplay in them or screenshots of the game, right? Ridiculous stuff. I'm just going to keep saying ridiculous because it is. It is just ridiculous, okay? The community tournament is not affiliated with Nintendo and makes no use of trademarks or IP except as permitted by these guidelines. So you can't use any of Nintendo's IP. So this is more like you can't say it's endorsed or you can't say it's sponsored. This actually makes sense. You don't want Nintendo to be liable for a tournament that they didn't approve of. That's like, you know, quote unquote sponsored. So you can't like say that it's sponsored, but it's not. But you also can't make use of the IP, like logos, character art. So if it's used in an official game, like let's say you take a screenshot and you Photoshop around it, you can't use that either. Or even if you wanted to make your own custom character that's pretty identical, you can't do that either. The games must have been officially launched or servers have officially begun in the region in the community tournament is taking place. You can't use modified versions of Nintendo games. So, for example, you can't use Melee Online tournaments, not allowed anymore. You can't do Mario Kart Wii tournaments, not allowed anymore. And any tournament that has online servers that are not provided by Nintendo, they're not allowed to have official prize pools, anything like that. The organizer adheres to the following additional stipulations. Basically, you need to follow basic laws. That's what it looks like. No harassment, discrimination, no gambling, which, I mean, gambling, I think you can make a case for actually allowing because esports is starting to allow gambling, I believe, in a lot of different ways. I understand alcohol or drugs, potentially, because you don't want to be liable for people at the event doing certain things and you being responsible for giving out that alcohol if it's a Nintendo launch tournament, right? That makes sense. Organizers will make sure that participants and spectators are of age according to the applicable age rating of the game used in the tournament. So any mature 17 plus, you have to make sure everyone is 17 plus. Absolutely ridiculous stuff. Like, let's say it's just E10 plus, for example. E10 plus, it usually is a very wide range of games that is E10 plus. Now you have to make sure that everyone is 10 and up. So I'm guessing Smash, you probably can't allow anyone under the age of 10. So anyone that has kids that are playing in the Smash tournament, you can't have them in. Usually, when I think of video game ratings, they're usually a guideline for parents that have kids that they're not too sure whether or not they want to have the game for their child, right? Let's say they ask the game for Christmas. They're like, okay, let's check the rating of this game. Let's say they're like 9 or 10 years old. If it's an M17 plus game, they're probably going to say, Timmy, you probably shouldn't be playing this game, right? Let's say, I don't know if there's like a rated R version of a game where they have like innuendos, NSFW things in it. Obviously, if it has something like that, a parent probably doesn't want their child to play that game. That's what I think of when you use the age rating of a game, right? It's usually a guideline for parents, bottom right of the cover of the game, to see what exactly it's about, right? So they can either just completely move on from it entirely and not have to worry about it, or, things like that. A lot of parents will say at 14, 13, their child is old enough to play like M17 plus games, right? Mature games, they're like, okay, it's fine. You've seen enough already as a child. We can trust you with like Call of Duty, for example. So anyone under the age of 17 who wants to participate in an M-rated tournament is just completely not allowed. And they are allowed to cancel any community tournaments at its sole discretion. So if they think that any tournament is going to violate or likely to violate, which that's very broad legally. I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell it's very broad that they can do. Deems inappropriate is another word that you can broadly apply to almost any tournament. I don't know where I'm going to insert this, but I just saw this, which I thought was very interesting. Question 3. What are some of the tournaments that are not permitted by these guidelines? Tournaments that are not permitted by these guidelines include, but are not limited to the below. For-profit tournaments, can't do those. Online tournaments that collect admissions fees from the spectators, not allowed. Tournaments that make it a condition of entry in tournaments or viewing tournaments to subscribe or follow a YouTube channel, an X account, or any other streaming channel or social media account, or subscribe to a paid membership, so like Patreon, Twitch subscriber, YouTube membership, X subscription, all of those not allowed. Tournaments in which participants are paid a performance fee or other expenses. So even if you want to make a tournament where you pay out participants for, you know, flying out or etc., not allowed. Tournaments that receive goods or money from third parties, such as sponsors. This is the big one. This is the only way that tournaments would be able to make money based off the guidelines that they gave, but sponsors are also not allowed. And you also can't sell food, beverages, merchandise. Please note that Nintendo does not currently grant permission for individuals to organize commercial tournaments. We ask for your understanding. Yeah. Thanks, Nintendo. Appreciate it. Really do. Yeah. Let's continue for the rest of the video. So overall, my final thoughts. I don't think I've seen anything more ridiculous from a company, a video game company, in my entire lifetime. You're going to lose tons of money from, you know, competitive players. Just think about it like this, all right? Let's say you go to an event, right? And there are vendors selling merch of that Nintendo-related tournament, right? Let's say they have, like, Yoshi plushies. Or they have, like, a Mario set of playthings, right? That's just, you're going to lose so much money from that because tournaments are not going to happen. You're also not going to get as many sales from people who want to play tournaments in your specific game. If they say, oh, you know, I want to play this game, but I'm only really going to play it if I can play competitively, or I can play it with tournaments, with like locals, with my friends or something. If that's not allowed, right? Let's say Smash, for example, they're probably not going to buy the game anymore. They're probably not going to buy merch for that game. They're probably not going to buy the amiibos, right? I'm just talking about Smash, right? This goes for a lot of different games. Splatoon as well. Very bad for all Nintendo games, all Nintendo-related competitive communities, and just Nintendo in general. Making a big mistake. There is no way to slice this. I don't know how they thought this was a good idea. I don't know how they think this is ever going to be a good idea in the long term. I don't know what they're thinking. They're super out of touch. Big surprise. Very likely they're going to lose tons and tons of money. I would not be surprised if they either roll these back, these guidelines, or if they get enough community backlash to where they modify these rules a whole ton to make it so that these things don't happen. Now, will that happen? I don't have faith in Nintendo whatsoever, so I highly doubt it. If you want to know, let's say you're running a tournament that doesn't involve money whatsoever, and it's just like an online thing. I don't think that'll be restricted by Nintendo whatsoever, because I think a tournament legally, in the sense, is like you have an entry fee or you have a spectator fee, something like that. Sorry for the big rant. I just wanted to go through all of this. I will be linking the legality stuff, the legal information, community tournament guidelines in the description and in the comments below if you want to take a look at them yourself. Let's just hope that this doesn't last very long. See you guys next time.